Good evening. Welcome to the CIGR committee. Today is September 5th. It's 5:36. Commissioners Simmons and Commissioner Malloy will be joining us on Zoom. Temporarily for Commissioner Simmons. She'll be arriving shortly. And Vice President LeBron, I guess, will be on Zoom as well. There are no speakers or comments tonight. I need a motion to approve the January 10th, 2023 meeting minutes.
So moved.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Let's talk about discussion of topics, which is the purpose of the CIGR committee. The purpose of the Community and Intergovernmental Relations Committee is twofold. One, to increase public awareness of the Board of Education and the ways in which board oversight and decision-making improve student performance and achievement in the district. Two, to facilitate the board's working relationship with stakeholders to advance district interests. B, parent representative for 2023-24 is Neil Osuch. He's returning for the 2023-2024 school year. His voice as a parent rep continues to be appreciated and necessary to the work of the CIGR committee. Board planning. The purpose of our community forum is to engage parents, students, and community school stakeholders in a discussion around the important topics or actions that are currently impacting our district and our community. We're going to propose this year's community forum take place Saturday, November 3rd at 11 a.m. The venue will be East High School. I support the OPE's theme of We Are the Village for the forum. OP has been brainstorming topics. Some possible topics include RCSD telehealth and telemedicine partnerships, safety and security, the importance of literacy, and school reconfiguration. Between now and November, the CIGR committee and the Office of Parent Engagement will work with other district departments to further finalize the forum's format and agenda. If there are any topics commissioners would like to suggest for the engagement forum, please email your suggestions to Leslie before the end of the month. So at this time, I would like to invite the Director of Community.
Just a point of correction. Did you say November 3rd for the, that's a Friday, the superintendent just noted.
Oh,
or is it Saturday?
No, it's Saturday. It's
November
definitely
4th.
Saturday,
Okay.
November 4th.
All right.
My bad. I made a mistake once or twice before in my life.
Yeah, I thought that superintendent was saying something because that was my birthday, so I just wanted to make sure.
Okay.
You know.
So at this time, I'm going to invite Ms. Keisha Holloman. She's the Director of Community and Parent Involvement, to provide us with a presentation around OPE's plan for the family engagement for this school year.
Okay. All right. Evening, everyone. First and foremost, I want to thank Superintendent Dr. Carmine Peluso for inviting us tonight. Deputy Superintendent of Admin and Supports, Dr. Ruth Turner, Deputy Superintendent of Teaching and Learning, Mr. Strickland, Executive Director of Family and Community Engagement, Kelly Briggs. Board of Education President, Ms. Cynthia Elliott, and Vice President LeBron. The CIGR Chair, Commissioner Adams. State Monitor, Alicia. Board Commissioners Powell, Simmons, Patterson, Malloy, and our Student Representative, David Bouillon. I first want to start out with our mission for OPE, and our mission is to reach, where we respond to the needs of parents. We encourage partnerships, advocate on behalf of parents, collaborate with community partners, and finally, help support parents with their child's academic success. Taking a look back from year 22-23, some progress reports for our focus areas of last school year. We did a lot of rebranding with the Office of Parent Engagement, worked hard with building relationships with parent groups, and then increased professional learning. So I'll start on the next slide with rebranding. A big shout out to the communications department. Through partnership, we were able to update our OPE website. We were also able to update our social media platforms, create a new logo for OPE, and monthly there's a family newsletter where we have a section where we share all of our communication, our events and programs going on. And then lastly, we were able to market through some radio interviews. So building relationships with parents and groups, the parent groups, OPE supported parent groups by attending monthly meetings. We created an event request form where we were able to do a lot of checks and balances with the events that we supported. So there's a system of forms going on there. We supported parent events and going on to increasing professional learning. We'll continue to support our homeschool assistants and parent liaisons at the building level with monthly network meetings. We just recently had our Summer Institute in August, and we're jump-starting our parent liaisons and homeschool assistants with a lot of technology training that's definitely needed for what we're doing this school year. And then continued support for parents with our Parent University Lunch and Learns. Moving forward, looking at school year 23-24, the 3 areas of focus would be Parent University and Attendance Department collaboration, and then again, increasing supports for homeschool assistants and parent liaisons. So an upcoming event is our Latino Parent Conference, scheduled for Saturday, October 28th. Please save the date, at 11 a.m., and that's at the Gantt Center at 700 North Street. Also for our Parent University, the focus is a fall and winter course. Well, we will continue our Family Academy Saturdays, and this will be an event where we go to a school in a different school zone and just have a day of play for families. We started that initiative last school year. I think we had 4 events last school year where we went to different schools. We invited in community resources and community partners. We did Zumba, line dancing. We had an ice cream truck there. Rec on the Move was there. So simply just a day of play where parents and families came in and just had some fun there at one of the schools. So we'll continue that. And then partner with Monroe County to offer services. We know that a lot of times during the school day, there's just not enough time after work to get things done at the county level. If you need a birth certificate, if you're looking for child care to sign up. So we're partnering with them to bring them to those Family Academy Saturdays and other events so that they're there on site for those services. We'll also continue with workshops that will be virtual and in person. These will be parent-to-parent led courses, including restorative practices, some social emotional learning workshops, youth mental health first aid workshops, financial literacy, technology, and college and career readiness. To gain some insight and feedback from Parent University, we'll have parents complete questionnaires at the end of each session to garner real-time feedback and to build genuine relationships also. We will also include homeschool assistants and parent liaisons to get their feedback about parents and parent universities within their schools, which is very important. I'll talk more about school-based parent universities. And then how also we need to know more feedback on how parent engagement can better serve our parent population. Continuous family engagement opportunities. We did a survey last school year where we looked at most of the schools to see who had parent centers. We found that most schools have parent centers, so we want to look at the school-based parent centers and partner with schools to plan these re-grand openings of parent centers, just to showcase what the parent centers are, what we do there, and what resources we have for parents and families right at the school level. Again, school-based parent university, we know we can find parents there at the school, so we're looking at pushing parent university back at the school level, partnering with schools and doing those workshops and events there. And then homeschool assistance and parent liaison professional learning, we're still offering that monthly, where that's our monthly network meetings, and we will be working strategically with parent liaisons, homeschool assistants to give them more professional learning with some of the initiatives and engagements that we have planned. Also with that, we'll definitely connect with our community-based organizations to collaborate and just partner and provide adequate resources for our families. Lastly, with Parent University, we're looking into create incentives for our parents. For example, universal gift cards, and that will include parents in developing that initiative. And then to do this, we would definitely partner with some local businesses, community-based organizations, and then other assets in our community to donate to this. Increasing supports for building level homeschool assistants and parent liaisons. I know we've mentioned that quite a few times, but this is very important because they are the first base, the home base, the face for parents when they enter the school buildings. So with that, we will continue the monthly network meetings, and then our community liaison specialists in our department, they meet with homeschool assistants and parent liaisons to offer that one-to-one support there at the school. And then we'll continue supporting school events and get homeschool assistants and parent liaisons more involved with those building level events there. Next steps, we plan to partner with Building Leadership to discuss goals and expectations for homeschool assistants and parent liaisons. We are encouraging Building Leadership to create that partnership to recognize and acknowledge the professional work of homeschool assistants and parent liaisons, and then provide coaching and professional learning for our HSAs and our parent liaisons with professional development incentive. That's actually starting September 12th. We have a a 10 session workshop that we plan, and it's they will receive incentives for professional development to help garner parent engagement efforts at their schools. So our attendance department collaboration, this is another initiative that we're looking at, and this collaboration is an initiative that will address attendance concerns and connect it to parent engagement. So partner with Carly Jelsma in the attendance department, we would want to coordinate efforts to reduce chronic absences, use qualitative and quantitative data to understand the attendance challenges at the school, assist with developing home school assistants and parent liaisons and becoming attendance champions, and then connect families and students to community resources and partnerships. We would do this by providing asset mapping training, where we're looking at different zip codes and linking families to community resources to help remove some barriers from the attendance issues that they may be experiencing. I'm on page 15. Further collaboration, looking at school pilots for the attendance collaboration. We're looking at 3 schools, although we know that we have many schools that are affluent with parent engagement and doing great work, but the 3 schools that we're piloting are School 34. We did some summer work with them over the just last month. We did an event with them, a parent community cafe, where we invited new incoming families to get them acclimated to the school. It was a great turnout. They want to partner with us to establish a parent engagement program at their school. Also, Northwest Middle School. We know that we have 2 standalone middle schools, that's Northwest and Dr. Alice Young. So we're looking at that school to pilot with, and they have the Rock Restorative Hub, which was open today. So we're partnering with them and excited about the work that's gonna take place there. Lastly, a high school that we wanna look at is Edison, where they have their in-house parent university program. We also want to look at our program schools and partner with them to discuss and collaborate efforts with re-entry to home schools, have restorative conversations around, going back to their home schools after they're at the program schools, or just invite more parents in to have better engagement at the program schools. So again, restorative conversations, community supports, and this will build a bigger parent engagement platform there. Lastly, looking at partnering with pre-K, and very excited about this one, because partnering with early childhood and looking at our enrollment, our future enrollment, this will be a great place to start partnering to increase our student enrollment post pre-K. So we plan to establish an ongoing relationship with parents of the pre-K population there, and then attend their pre-K events. And again, we just feel like this would be a great place to start. There's a lot of staying power there if we start there and start building those genuine relationships at the pre-K level. A few save the dates. We've already mentioned Saturday, October 28th. That's our upcoming Latino Parents Conference. Saturday, November 4th, Commissioner Adams did mention that, but I'll mention it again. We're having our Family and Community Engagement Forum right here at East High School, 11 to 2. And then it's not listed here, but there's 2 parent group events happening This Saturday, September 9th, the Special Education Fair that will be at School 33 from 10 to 1. Registration is still open. And then Plaque will have an event. This year's event, their first event for the year, is Building Community for Our Kids, and that's taking place Thursday, September 14th at School 22 from 6 to 7:30. If you need more information, please contact OPE. And the last slide. And here is our social media handles as well as our contact information and our email. And thank you for your time.
I'd just like to say hats off to you for rescheduling our meeting today to collaborate with placement. That was a good thing.
Thank you.
I was glad that you did that. We needed that in order for them. I'm excited. Tomorrow is the first day. Kids are coming. So I'm going to be at 3 or 4 of them schools in the morning. So thank you for collaborating with placement to help things be just more inviting and more smoother tomorrow.
Thank
good
you.
presentation as well.
Thank you.
Any commissioners have any thing they need to say to?
Commissioner Adams, I do, actually.
Okay.
This is Commissioner Simmons online. I'm making my way there. I had to pick up some things for babies in our community, so I'm on my way in now. But thank you so much, Ms. Holloman, for what you presented today. A lot of rich information. I'm excited especially about the parent university and how you plan to lean in there in correlation with the attendance piece, because we know getting children in the seats directly correlates with their ability to learn, get the information that they need to get into the other grade levels. So I want to definitely learn more about what you're going to do to lean in the earlier grade levels. And I love that you're also partnering with Edison, because they do have a phenomenal parent university program where parents, I see the difference in the parents that are getting the direct information around student credits and what that means for their child and how to advocate for their child. So it's so much more than just being introduced to a school. So kudos to the intentionality placed in your sphere, and I look forward to talking to you more. So I'll be bringing you to an ESA meeting is what I'm trying to say, short story.
Okay, thank you.
So moving right along,
All set?
you're good.
Thank you.
I'm proposing that this year's legislative breakfast take place Saturday, March 2nd at the same place we had it last year, the Memorial Art Gallery. It was such a success. And I'm also asking the commissioners to start thinking now about the possible priorities that you would like to see at that event. There's no executive session. Board commissioners can complete this poll. And with that, I'm going to ask, can I get a motion to adjourn? Can I get a second? Moved by President Elliott, seconded by Commissioner Patterson. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
All right, I'll see y'all tomorrow at the schools.
Good evening and welcome back. This is the Policy Committee meeting of the whole meeting. Presently it's 6:13. We have a quorum. We have 5 people present. We have Commissioner Malloy and Commissioner LeBron on Zoom. I'd like to start the meeting with if someone would offer up a motion to accept the agenda. I have a motion from Commissioner Patterson. Seconded by Commissioner Adams. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is be speakers. We have no speakers. Oh, lovely, my screen jumped on me. I believe the next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes. Does anyone want to offer up a motion to?
Motion.
Commissioner Malloy offers up a motion to approve the minutes, seconded by Commissioner Simmons. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is, I believe it's a review of NYSBA policy recommendations. General Counsel Neal. Every microphone's different, so finding the on button's a little tricky. Do you want to use this one?
Hello?
There we
There we go. Yes, thank you very much, Commissioner Powell. There are several NYSBA updates today, so please bear with me as I go through them as expeditiously as I can. So first, there's a recommended update to Policy 0100, that's the non-discrimination and equal opportunity policy. This policy is required, the update is only recommended. NYSBA says we have updated our sample policy to reference the complaint process outlined in Policy 0110.2, sexual harassment in the workplace, to align with the New York State recommended policy. We recommend consolidating the complaint process for complaints of harassment/discrimination for legally protected classes. The associated regulation 0100-R that you may have had in place addressing complaints would be rescinded and replaced by 0110.2. So the district already has a 0100 policy and a 0100-R regulation that are fairly extensive. Whenever we get recommended updates like this, my recommendation is usually for us to do a careful kind of cross-reference to see if any of the updates make sense for us, and ultimately make a determination at the policy committee level, at subcommittee level, I should say, about whether there are elements that the district would like to adopt. Simply because they're recommended updates don't mean that they necessarily make sense for the district. And this is going to be a common kind of refrain you're going to hear as I run through some of the other recommended updates. The next is 0110.2, sexual harassment in the workplace. This policy is required. The update is required. It's a policy and exhibit. They state we have provided a modified version of New York State workplace sexual harassment policy to replace the previous NYSBA policy and regulation 0110.2. Employers must have a policy that conforms to the state model policy. Due to the extensive changes made to the state's model policy, we recommend adopting this version of the model rather than making extensive changes to the earlier policy. And again, similar to 0100, the district already has an extensive 0110 and 0110R policy. And I'm going to recommend the same kind of subcommittee review to make a determination of what makes sense. The next is Policy 1740, relations with non-public schools. The policy is recommended. The update is recommended. And they state, we have updated this policy to summarize the district's responsibilities towards students attending non-public schools and provide the district with the ability to permit or prohibit such student to participate in non-credit bearing school activities. Now, the RCSD currently has some of the elements of this recommendation are spread out among other policies, again, such as our transportation policy and our homeschool schooling policy. And as I recommended, with some of the prior ones I've run through, we should review at the committee level to make a determination whether any elements are needed and that we'd like to adopt. The district does not currently have a 1740 equivalent, but as I said, some of the elements are spread amongst other policies. The next is NYSBA's policy 2210, board reorganizational meeting. The policy is recommended, the update is required. They state we have updated this policy to reflect the permissible dates for holding this meeting, options for taking oaths of office, as well as some positions which are required to be appointed. Although there is no requirement to make these appointments at the annual organizational meeting, many boards do so and have a more comprehensive list that will assist the district in meeting its obligations. So similar to the other policies, a lot of this is covered in District Policy 2300, the board bylaws. And so there might be elements that make sense for the district and some that do not. Again, it's just the policy is recommended, but the update is required. So this one will take a closer look as well. The next is NYSBA's 2382, broadcasting and recording of board meetings. The policy is recommended. The update is required. They state we have updated this policy to better reflect the model rules published by the Committee on Open Government for broadcasting and recording meetings. The district has a policy 2325, the video conferencing of board meetings, and again, that captures some of this. So similarly, at the subcommittee level, we might take a look and make a determination about whether anything that they're recommending makes sense. Next up is 4321, programs and services for students with disabilities. The policy is required, the update is required, and they state we have updated this policy to reflect a recent clarification by the New York State Education Department about the district's obligation to provide special education services to students with disabilities until those students turn 22. Previously, it was until the end of the school year in which a student turned 21. If the board recalls, at the last business meeting, a policy 4772 graduation ceremonies was adopted that made some clarifications related to this. The district has several policies that touch on special education students. Primarily there's 4202, students with disabilities. And again, I think this is one that we may want to expedite at the subcommittee level to bring a recommendation to the board ASAP, because this is required and it obviously has significant implications on district operations. They similarly included 4772 in this batch, but we addressed it at the last board meeting, so I won't go into that. And next up is 8413, transportation for non-public students. The policy is recommended, the update is recommended, and they state we have updated this policy to summarize the district's obligations to provide transportations to students attending non-public schools. The district has a transportation policy, 8400, and I think anything that affects transportation would need significant review at the subcommittee level. It obviously would have significant operational implications. And so again, the recommendation would be for this to be examined at the subcommittee level. But again, as with many of these, the district does have a policy 8400 that touches on many, if not most, of the elements of their recommended policy. And finally, NYSBA's 8414.5, drug and alcohol testing of drivers. The policy is required, the update is recommended. There's both a policy and a regulation and an exhibit. They state we have updated this policy and regulation to reflect that drug testing may now be conducted on oral fluid specimens, and to clarify that while adult cannabis is legal in New York, it is still prohibited and tested for purposes of federal drug testing requirements. Additionally, we included the district's responsibility for querying the federal clearinghouse as well as cautioning employees that CBD use may trigger a positive THC drug test result. A new exhibit is provided for consent to query the clearinghouse. The district has a policy, already has a policy 9320, drug-free workplace, that was updated in 2021. We also have 8400, and that transportation policy does address some of the driver requirements as well. And again, because there are, three different documents here, this require an examination at subcommittee level, again, to determine whether there are any elements that the board would want to adopt.
Thank you, General Counsel Neal, for that update. I think we have at least one question. Go ahead, Commissioner Patterson. Anyone else?
Thank you. I had an opportunity to review our district policy 2300 relative to sexual harassment, if I'm correct. This is referencing, at this point in time, 0110.2, sexual harassment. Our district policy is a little bit confusing for me in reviewing of that. So I would like time to submit some recommendations for clarification.
If General Counsel could let Commissioner Patterson know when we think it will be on the subcommittee's agenda, we can invite you to participate at the subcommittee level.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
You say October?
I said absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I'm sorry. Any other questions?
I'm sorry, do you mind if I, sexual harassment, just as a FYI, just had its first reading during last month's business meeting, so I just wanted to put that out there in terms of review and making sure that that is a direction, right, to put out there.
So definitely look at what's in the pipeline now, the wording, and if you feel a need to comment at the second reading at our next business meeting, that would be an appropriate time to bring it to the public conversation. Okay. All right. Thank you for that reminder, Commissioner Adams.
Yeah, I'd just like council to just repeat one more time for me in reference to the transportation and the drug. I guess there was 3 updates or something you said, because this is definitely like a barricade for some folks getting a driver's job. So I just want to be clear on what it was you said. So if you could just repeat it.
Right. So NISBA's, they have it listed as 8414.5, drug and alcohol testing of drivers. The policy is required. The update is recommended. There's a policy, a regulation, and an exhibit in the materials. And they state that we have updated this policy and regulation to reflect that drug testing may now be conducted on oral fluid specimens. I think this is like in addition to the normal urine analysis that used to occur. So, and to clarify that while adult use cannabis is legal in New York, it is still prohibited and tested for purposes of federal drug testing requirements. Additionally, we included the district's responsibilities for querying the federal clearinghouse as well as cautioning employees that CBD use may trigger a positive THC drug test result. A new exhibit is provided for consent to query the clearinghouse. And what I said was we already have a couple policies on the books. 8400 in our transportation policy, there is some reference to the required testing. And we also have policy 9320, the drug-free workplace policy. So we have some of these elements already covered in some of our policies. So it's just a matter of again, cross-referencing, seeing what makes sense for us versus, again, what we already have or what's optional, what we need to add or not add.
Be able to respond to the inquiries about it.
Any other questions to my left? Any questions from our Zoom board members? Commissioner Patterson has a second question.
Yeah, one additive, again, relative to 0110.2, sexual harassment. I heard earlier that the state makes a recommendation and we modify that. So I would want to see, side by side what the state's recommendation is.
You mean NYSBA's, New York State School Board Association's recommendations?
Yes.
Mm-hmm, we can do that. Any other questions? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to agenda items 3C, Code of Conduct Committee. There are no updates. Agenda item 4A, I'm going to turn over to Charisma Travis, our admin assistant for the policy committee, to go through the policies that are ready to be advanced.
Thank you, Commissioner Powell. Good evening. So just like all policies, they follow the same roadmap where policies were reviewed during subcommittee and then was sent to the superintendent and his cabinet for feedback, as well as community input through our advisory groups. And if any questions or comments need to be made, it came back to subcommittee, and then now they are all in front of you all tonight. So the policy chairperson, Commissioner Powell, our general counsel, executive cabinet, audit general, and myself were a part of those meetings and input. In terms of standard operating procedures, the subcommittee met bi-weekly and follow recommendations for policy 2410. And so the first policy up for review is the Code of Ethics, policy 2160. The significant changes here is that the name to include conflict of interest, so the recommendation is for it to say Code of Ethics / conflict of interest. The annual financial disclosure section was revised to require all district employees to submit an annual statement of financial disclosure. Currently, it calls out specific individuals, including commissioners. And so NESBA's recommendation is that this policy is okay. School volunteers is a new policy, and there are no significant changes that were made compared to NESBA's sample. Vendor relations, the deliverable at the end of the policy was updated. NESBA has recommended that this policy is potentially problematic on several matters, including the definition of minority, the percentages, etc. The district should have the school attorney review this carefully and update for current good practices. Purchase of food, meals, and refreshments, 6835. So this is a brand new policy as well to the district. NESBA originally had a policy 9170 that was used and updated to reflect our district. And also the policy, as you see, it being recommended to 6835 is also being recommended to put in a financial management 6,000 series instead of the 9,000 series for employees. Support services goals, policy 8,000 is also a new policy. Looking at NESBA sample versus what is currently being presented, the goals have been updated to align with the board's vision for the district. Incidental teaching, 9460. Recommended to rescind this policy. If the policy is to be kept, then it's recommended that basically the entire policy is reworked, and then that one sentence that's on the policy would be the one that's recommended to be amended. NESBA has recommended that this policy may need to be updated per changes to regulations. NESBA does not maintain a sample on this topic. Please review with your school attorney. And so when it was reviewed by the school attorney, that's the sentence that was recommended. And then finally, reporting improper governmental action when protecting employees against retaliation, which is also known as our district whistleblower policy, 9645. Updates throughout the policy, including policy language in alignment with changes in state law. NESBA has recommended that this policy has been updated. And so next steps will be that if those policies are forwarded out of the committee tonight, we'll follow policy 2410 and will be up for board vote during a November business meeting. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Charisma. For board members that are on Zoom, get ready, we're about to vote, so you probably want to turn your cameras on and your mic on.
I have a question. Just in reference to policy 2160, in the clean copy, policy 9540 is referenced there in the clean copy, but it's my understanding that we rescinded 9540 in April. So I'm wondering if we can take a look at that under letter F.
We'll check that, and we'll make sure that if it no longer belongs in the notes or the reference section, we can take it out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Malloy, would you like to move that policy 2160 out of committee?
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second? Seconded by Commissioner Adams. Any other discussion besides Commissioner Malloy's remarks? Seeing none, then I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I was told that Commissioner LeBron is on Zoom. Commissioner LeBron, are you ready to cast a vote?
I'm not going to be joining on camera, so I will not be voting tonight. I'm just here to observe and listen and talk off camera. Thank you.
Okay. General Counsel, does that count as present if she's not able to vote?
I'm fine. It's being marked absent. That's fine too.
All right. If you'll make that note, Charisma.
There is a quorum present here, and the open meeting law says commissioners should be able to be seen and heard when voting. So, as Commissioner LeBron said, she is okay with being technically absent tonight and won't be voting.
Thank you. I won't belabor that point then. We have moved policy 2160 out of committee with a 6-0 vote. The next one is policy 4532, school volunteers. Again, this was a new proposal by NISBA. Is that correct, Charisma?
You said 4532. Yes, this is a new one by NISBA, school volunteers.
Okay. Would anyone like to make the motion to put it out of committee?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Malloy, second by Commissioner Simmons. Discussion. It's straight out of NISBA's recommendation, so I think that speaks for its veracity. If there are no other questions, all in favor? Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any nays? Carries 6-0. Thank you. The next one is vendor relations, 6750. A little history on this one. It came into effect as a joint project with the city and the school district. The city passed an identical version of this policy back in the day. It was intended to be updated every 5 years based on a disparity study. Disparity studies have not been done as regularly as proposed. So the most profound change here is to take that 5-year clock off of it and review the policy following any disparities study after any period of time that might come about, so that we are able to identify the most current ratio of minority and women-owned businesses in the various fields as soon as that information is available to us. Would anyone like to move that out of committee?
So moved.
Commissioner Patterson beat you all. Commissioner Adams, would you like to second? Thank you. Any discussion about that policy? Can't see everybody. Oh, hearing none then. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. The next one, 6835, purchase of meals and refreshment. This references meals purchased by and for staff and for events around our meetings and regular business function. That's why we assigned it a number in the financial services section of the policy. Would anyone like to move this out of committee?
So moved.
Commissioner Adams moves. Second by Commissioner Simmons. Discussion. See, this was brought to us by our own CFO FAR, and he crafted the language essentially from scratch. So kudos to CFO FAR for taking the initiative. We appreciate it. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. The next one is support service goals. That would lead the way in the 8,000 series. Would anyone like to make a motion? Commissioner Patterson moves.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Simmons. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Last one. Incidental teaching. This one, NISBA's recommending that we rescind. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
It's moved by Commissioner Simmons. Second by Commissioner Adams. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I hear no opposition. So the motion carries 6-0. Oh, I'm sorry, I did say this was the last one, but it's not. The next one is the improper governmental action and protecting employees against retaliation, otherwise known as the district whistleblower policy. That's policy 9645. Do I have a motion? Moved by Commissioner Patterson.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Simmons. Discussion. Yes, Commissioner Patterson.
I think that with this policy, we should all pay strict attention to this to make sure that individuals that do want to come forward with information are never, ever subjected to being targeted or some other type of negative treatment. So I'll be watching this policy closely, myself as a commissioner, board commissioner, to make sure that individuals who have honesty and integrity, not that I'm questioning anyone at this point in time, but that we should all be the role models and mentors, in this area.
Thank you for that comment, Commissioner Patterson. Any other comments? Okay, hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? I think we lost Commissioner Malloy. Commissioner Malloy, did you cast your vote? We're going to record that as a 5-0 vote. Charisma? Do you have a question? President Elliott?
I don't.
No, okay. Okay, that completes item 4 of our agenda. We, well, no, it doesn't. We have several policies up for discussion. These have been sort of put on hold for some time, starting with the board policy, board access to information and reports, policy 2110.1. You'll see that if you go into board docs and tap the little document icon, that will take you to further documents. Is there, and we're not, Charisma, did you intend for us to try to vote on this today? Is that your hope and expectation?
I mean, that would be nice,
That
but
would
at
be
least
nice.
at least discuss because 2 of them are new, will be new policies to the district, whereas the other one, of course, is the bylaws. So that would be nice, but if not,
I don't know if everyone could hear her, but she basically, these are among the very, very last policies that need to be discussed. And these all, because these all affect the board directly, I thought we would have a separate conversation about them. So has anyone had a chance to review 2110.1, board access to information and reports? It's essentially a set of protocols. It has not changed much since our last conversation about it. I would be happy to take a motion to move it, advance it to the full board if someone wants to make such a motion. Moved by Commissioner Simmons,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Adams. Any discussion? We've had a lot of time to stew over this, and this is really our best effort at a language that puts protocols together. Not all protocols become policy, but because this affects the board, it seemed prudent to do so. Yes, Commissioner Patterson, you have a question?
It looks like in, let's see, it talks about examination. I think it's number 3. Board is in the process of making determination about, and under the circumstance, will have the right to examine such materials in the manner of set forth. You know, just to examine a document, I think that's a strong word. Why aren't we able to review it within our own context?
Can you point me to the
3, number
under
3.
general or under personnel records?
Under general.
Number 3, in the absence of majority vote, single member may still request information.
Keep reading down.
If he or she can demonstrate the requested information is relevant to what the board is in the process of making determination about, or under such circumstances will have the right to examine such materials in the manner set forth below.
So that, my question is that examination in the company of someone else? Or are we allowed to request a document and review it in an area of our choosing?
Well, if in a manner set forth below, it is referring to personnel records, that has to be essentially a SCIF kind of scenario, right?
I think we should add that then if it says, if it's going to be personnel records. Right now it's open-ended to include everything.
And it could also involve contracts that are in negotiation. So anything that might be executive session material. Am I reading that correctly, General Counsel?
So it does say as set forth below, and I think the description of personal records kind of gives a good overview. During an executive session, records are returned in their entirety to the superintendent at the conclusion of the session. No reproduction of the record is made and no written notes are taken of the contents of the record. So I think there are some criteria that are laid out. There are certain materials that are, due to the nature of the sensitivity, they're reviewed or presented under, stricter criteria than some other material. I think, it spells it out for personal records, but, maybe a report might not need that level of, that level of security, so to speak. So, I think it would just be potentially dependent on the specific record.
Now, keep in mind that the opening dependent clause is in the absence of a majority. So if the majority wants to see it, then, and it's not confidential in any way, if it's not pending contract or personnel matter, it might be, less restriction would be placed around it. I
Well,
think,
the specific reason, sorry to cut you off, but the specific reason I'm asking, if there is a majority vote that does not want you to obtain a record, that's why I'm asking. This indicates a single board member can then move to recover or receive that information here, but it's too broad, is what I'm saying. It's not specific.
there's two reasons why a board might choose not to vote in the majority to make records available. One is, and the issue that's been most on our minds in the past has been the overuse of a board member's prerogative to request information and just bogging down the administration with such requests. That's one of the big issues. The other is just a question of whether board members individually and collectively can be trusted to keep matters confidential. And we have a long history in this district of things leaking to the press and so on. So that's really why the constraints are placed around it.
And if I may add, absolutely correct, Commissioner, if I may add one, I think Commissioner Patterson just pointed to the whistleblower policy and the potential for like recrimination for someone who did something that they should have done. And so there's actually a pretty, one of the seminal cases on this very issue is about a board member potentially using those records for punitive purposes, right? Reviewing records or requesting records for punitive purposes. So that's just to add to the what you just.
Yeah, and I respect that, but there's also a way of getting information to an individual, such as redacting a report, so it doesn't name names and have names in them to protect, the whistleblower.
Okay, those comments are duly noted. Thank you for taking the time to articulate them. Anyone else on this policy? Okay, well, we do have a motion and a second to take it out of committee. All in favor? Aye. And I think we're still absent Commissioner Malloy. Oh, there she is. Are you voting, Commissioner Malloy?
Yes, aye.
Okay. Any opposed?
Nay, at this point in time.
Okay, we have one nay, so that carries 5-1. And of course, there's the whole process of first and second readings, and if you have specific language you'd like to see added or deleted, you can sort of present that during the course of our adoption process, okay?
Thank you.
Alrighty. That takes us to policy 2111.1, member school visits. This was under heated discussion for some time, a while back, and I deliberately held it back because I felt we needed the temperature to come down on some of these issues. If you want to look at the track changes version, it's up on display. This, again, is the best accommodation we could come to with some of the issues that had been raised. Would anyone like to move this out of committee? Or would we like to hold on to it for another month and think about it?
A motion, I think it's simplistic enough, gives a nice direction.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor.
I'm sorry, what number was
You
this?
have a second.
Commissioner Malloy, we're talking about 2111.1.
Thank you.
And it was seconded by Commissioner Adams. Discussion.
Discussion.
Yes.
I know it's a lot of discussion for me tonight when I'm normally quiet, but I think these are important going forward because some of these things have involved me personally. So that's why I'm speaking out on them. And I'm one for rules and instructions and guidelines and things of that nature. But under no circumstance should a union be able to dictate what a board member does and doesn't do. So that all being said, again, that's why I began my statement by I'm respectful of rules and regulations and guidelines and, you know, what, you know, my colleagues, you know, would like us to do and how they would like us to enter schools and things of that nature. But keep in mind there has to be some flexibility too.
So if I may
if you have a...
Are you done? You weren't done?
I'm not done, thank you.
Oh, okay.
So for example, if you have a good relationship, as some of my colleagues do on this board with principals, you don't have to wait for the 72-hour notification before you go into a school. So there has to be some flexibility. But I just want to preface it with that no union should be directing what a board member does. That's between the 7 board members here and the superintendent. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Powell. I like this particular policy because I think it provides general direction and not any type of restrictive pieces, because there is language in here that speaks explicitly around invitation. So if, for example, Edison is a school that they will call me on a whim. They will say, hey, by the way, Commissioner Simmons, we have this event coming. Just want to make you aware of it. And so it's kind of this open door policy that has been established based on the relationship and understanding we have there. And so that allows me the flexibility for a school in which I have that type of rapport, you know, to go there. There's other schools that, but it also gives me some boundaries when visiting schools. So I particularly like this. This is just my personal opinion. As I continue to grow all of my relationships around my schools.
Thank you for that observation, Commissioner Simmons. And if I might respond to the idea of, you know, the board member visits to schools being somehow restricted by unions or unions trying to impact. That's part of the reason that we codify things in that are ordinarily protocol into policy. So no one can hide behind a claim that it's against policy. Well, you can read the policy, and anyone can read the policy and know what's in bounds and what's out of bounds. So it's one of the reasons for making it, you know, the protocols a part of the policy manual. Okay?
Commissioner Powell?
Yes, ma'am.
But I would also add that we have to know how to go into the buildings correctly and respectfully. And I think that this is why we were looking at, you know, adding this information, because there has been some complaints from our schools on our commissioners. And so here's an opportunity for us to work as harmoniously together as we can. But there have been times historically, that we have not come in, and currently, that we have not come in as respectfully as we should. This is an opportunity, I believe, in order to be able to, ensure that we're going in and that we're going in correctly. There are some schools that, the principals say, whenever you want to come, because they respect the work that we're doing on this board and the relationships that we've had with the schools. Others, it's been some disconnect, and it's been some challenging. It's been some conflicts. And there's been complaints. And so because of that, we've had to put this, in place. It has not been the kind of relationship, in the schools with some of our board members, past and present, in the schools. And from that regard, it's just important that we are going in with the best intention. And the other thing too is that when a board member comes into these schools, and if it's a negative energy, it tends to resonate within that in those schools. And that, for me, I believe, impacts learning, impacts leadership, impacts just the way in which our staff work together on behalf of our children. And so, because we do carry that, this board, the Board of Education, not only this board, but boards historically, we carry some influence. We carry great influence in these schools. And we have to recognize that we do carry this kind of influence, and that we have to make sure that we are entering in those buildings with the right intention. And that's not to say there's not criticism, but it certainly has to be with the right intention for the betterment of our schools and for the betterment of our children and families. And there have been times when our schools have not believed that some of the board members have come in with the right intention. And it may have been the right intention, but the way in which it's been presented has been egregious to some of our schools. And so I think that because some of us are not, coming into the schools in the respectfully, we may have to, we have to consider this kind of a scenario. I wish we had not, but I think that we do for the safety of our schools. Thank you, Chairman Powell.
Any other questions or comments to my left? Commissioner Adams?
I just think it is important that we do have something, you can call this whatever you want to call it, guardrail, some whatever, but I think we do need it because I know for a fact that if I go into a building and if I bring any negative energy in there, it's contagious. It's contagious. It spreads throughout the whole building. And so I have to be conscious of that. I can't go in there with, I have to have an optimistic approach when I go up in there. I can't go up in there telling them about, I had a bad night last night. When I go in there, I tell them, I'm good. Things could be worse. So I can't complain, and I have that attitude. You have to have that optimistic attitude. It's so important, and I just hope that this board does that.
One other thing, Commissioner Powell. One other thing, Commissioner Powell. The other thing is that we have, I've been checked because of the way in which I've come into a school, and I've embraced that. From my colleagues, but there's been the situation where when we presented about a situation with board members going into the schools, that there's been this resistance from the board member. And so, and all we're trying to do is to help. And so, if we can embrace the criticism and go from there, understanding that we're trying to be, in this board and previous boards, an effective board. And so when we see that there has been some criticism from the outside, and when we bring it, but it's resisted, you know, as opposed to it being a learning opportunity, that's why this kind of inclusion wording to be included in policy has to be considered by this board.
Commissioner Patterson?
Yeah, allow me to preface also, I should have initially that when we talk about unions, my parents worked for General Motors for decades. And so I'm a union child, we'll say.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very respectful of unions and things they've fought for years. So let me just say that. But again, this negative energy thing that I keep hearing, you know, being a teacher in the classroom, long-term subbing, having worked for several institutions, one thing that is shared among these schools is when a board member is coming in is that a day or two in advance, people are notified that they're coming. And so they prepare for that. For me, I want to go, if a school is having an issue, a serious issue, I'm not talking a minor issue, I, as a commissioner, want to see that for myself. Because if I can't see it, and this board knows, I don't vote on things that I'm not knowledgeable relative to. I just can't do that. So I want to see the issue. Maybe I'll have a solution to the issue. But if I can't see it, I can't provide you with a solution. So I'm not there as a board member to report on a principal or whatever's going on in that school, but to help. And I think that, I'm speaking for myself as a board member, that, and now to the public, and now everyone should be aware, when I come into your school, I'm there to provide solutions to you, to help you, to come alongside you, not to report you to the superintendent, but to come alongside you with solutions to our problems. And I can only do that if I see that. That being said, I'll go right back to the policy. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with being governed myself. But there are certain situations where we have to allow flexibility, and that's all I'm asking. Thank you.
And let me just, oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner.
I was just going to say thank you, Commissioner Patterson, for
Yeah.
being candid. President Elliott?
Thank you. Let me, since you brought that up, let me just say, but it's not our role to provide solutions. We're governance. That role is the superintendent's role. So I think that that's where there can also be a disconnect, that we're taking on a role that belongs to the superintendent when our role is governance. Thank you.
Commissioner Powell, Vice President LeBron has her hand raised on Zoom.
Okay. Commissioner LeBron?
Thank you. I just want to, for listening audience and also our staff who may be listening, to just reiterate that one singular commissioner has no power or authority. Really, the power lies in the body of 7 as a collective, minimally 4 to get something, a solution passed, if you will. And so that time is better spent building relationships on the board to count to the votes. But I just have to say this, because I've never had an issue going into a school, but I also, again, understanding and knowing forefront that I, as one individual, I have no power as an individual board member over an entire situation happening in a classroom or a school. What I can do, however, is listen and then take it back to the superintendent to advocate and figure out with the superintendent what he or she believes are the solutions and what they're going to do about it. Because, yeah, our superintendents get paid a lot of money to be the problem solvers for a lot of these issues, and they hire a lot of people to help them with the problem solving. And that's the hierarchy on that side of it. And then I just have to address again, and this is more comment for the record, whether the minutes reflect me as present or not. There's a Zoom, there's video evidence that I'm here listening and I'm present. That our staff, I just have to say this piece, it's not that the union is controlling what board members do, but it is the union's job to also protect their members, and that's their job. And our job is to act in accordance with governance, policy, and the budget, and supervising the superintendent and working with the superintendent directly and his or her team to address the issues within the district. And we do that through policy for the most part. And so this policy is a result of certain actions by certain board members, not I. I just want to be clear about that, because I guess we're all talking vague, so let's talk vague, but I want to be clear that it is not me. I've never had any issues going into a school, but I've always gone in respecting a principal who is overseeing and is in charge. And in that space, that principal, in my opinion, has the greatest authority in their school on what happens in that school. And yeah, there's teachers that have issues. There is a protocol in place to either bring it up the ladder through their school administration or going above to the school chief. And if you're not getting the solution from the school chief, this is where our staff also have some union protections in place, right? They can take their grievances to the union as well, and the union will advocate on their behalf too. So there are a couple of different avenues, and obviously staff reach out to board members all the time. And I will always take those concerns and those issues right back to the folks that we're paying to, like I said in the beginning, to solve these issues, you know, and hold them accountable, because that's where I feel like that's where I can step in. So I'll just say that, and I just wanted it on the record that it's not that the union is controlling any board members, but certainly, especially board staff members who are not tenured have a different fear, if you will, with certain board members entering their building than staff who may be tenured and have been in the system for a long time and understand how the system actually works. But I think this is a good policy for us to have. And it's a place, it's a starting place. You know, will we have to revise it in a year? Hopefully not. Hopefully this passes enough and has enough guardrails, as Commissioner Adams said earlier, that we then minimize or eliminate issues as we move forward with school visits. But that's the goal ultimately, and I'm here for it and I support it. Thank you.
Commissioner Malloy, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to agree with Vice President LeBron. I think this is a board governance matter. And sorry for the way I'm talking. I'm recovering from COVID and I'm not feeling very well. Our job as board members is to, number one, supervise our superintendent, create policy for the district in terms of governance, and then also be fiscally responsible. And so I view this just simply as a guardrail, as Commissioner Adams was saying, just to ensure the protection of our employees. And as Vice President LeBron said, no one person has the power to make any decision, and we have a process in place, but also processes in place to protect our employees as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any final?
Just going to say the 7 habits of highly effective people. And I cannot remember what chapter it is, but it talks about intent versus impact. And it's always a reflective point, because no matter my interaction, be it in a school, community, or a personal interaction, you have to be reflective of your intent versus the impact and person's perceptions. And we may say it's not accurate, but perception is reality, unfortunately, even when I disagree, right? So I think we have to just be reflective in all of the points and sentiments expressed. I agree. Thank you.
I think everyone has had an opportunity to weigh in. I knew this was going to be impactful, and I appreciate everyone being cool and level-headed and civil about it. Any last words? If not, I'll bring it to a vote. All in favor of advancing this to the full board? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it carries 6-0. And the last one we have is revision to our board bylaws. There was some discussion in the past about whether committee members should be removed and under what circumstances and how it would be done. I think that's a remedy for that omission in our bylaws, I think, is presented. And there are a couple of other changes. As you'll see, there are comments and highlights in the track changes version. Would anyone like to move this to the full board, or do we want to think on this and review it more carefully until next meeting? I'm not hearing a motion, so is it safe? I'm going to ask one more time. Is it safe to assume folks want to sit with this and read it and think about it more?
I'm actually prepared to motion.
And I'm
Okay,
actually
I wanted to
prepared
think on it a bit more.
I'm actually prepared to second it.
Okay, then. We have a motion and a second. Discussion.
Is there a way we can pull the tracked changes up on the screen?
Who's driving the screen? We're working on 2300.
Is there a specific section you want to see?
I just want to know generally what changes, how this changes from the prior version, and I can't see it side by side, so.
Well, the first change on page 1 refers to special meetings and board work sessions. It's highlighted, which is to say that there was a comment added and some very minor word tweaks. On page 2, there's a comment on the abstention. I'll remind everyone that an abstention is based on a financial conflict of interest, and otherwise we're not entitled to abstain. On the bottom of page 2, it refers to Robert's rules instead of a specific edition. It was recommended that we just change it to the most recently published version, so we don't have to keep changing that paragraph each time that we update our policy. The next change isn't until page 6. New language around the issue I just mentioned, the leadership resignation and recalls. And there are some changes to the student representative paragraph. In large measure, because the original Student Advisory Board, which was the Student Leadership Congress, bylaws essentially have been lost, and we're recrafting them, or the students are recrafting them. We hope to have them available to attach to this policy by the time we're actually voting on it, but we want to refer to we want to be able to add to our policy manual all bylaws that pertain, whether it be PAC or, PLAC or Bilingual Council or the Student Leadership Council. So that's what that paragraph is.
Very quickly, just a question regarding B. I just wanted to know if there's a way that we can cross-check this with education law in New York State, because under NYSBA policies, board members cannot be censured by fellow board members, and I just want to make sure that this falls under or is appropriate under state law by the education department.
General Counsel, you want to address that?
Yes, absolutely. I can absolutely do that and provide some additional information for board members. Historically, that was the law of the land, so to speak. The Supreme Court did make a ruling within the last year or two specific to censure of boards and bodies. So it is not as hard and fast that it can't happen. But I will provide that legal information for the board for consideration.
Thank you, sir.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
So define censure.
A censure is essentially a reprimand.
No, I guess I know what that is, but I guess what I'm saying is, does that mean in every area? I mean, we can't eliminate a board, you know, we can't, a board member is elected, but is there any limitations, I guess is the question is, around censoring?
There are limitations. I mean, it takes a removal, for example, right? I mean, if you're really talking about a punitive measure for a board member, you know, there's a process for removal. You have to go through the state education department, through the law. I think as when a reference is made to kind of censure, it's typically like a written reprimand or a public reprimand by the body, you know, to another member.
So that means that cannot be done.
I think the question from Commissioner Malloy is whether it can be done, and I'm saying it was a couple years ago. It was more clear that it couldn't be done. Not so much anymore. There have been some recent decisions in the last year that suggest that it can be done. Is the question? I guess the question is whether the body wants that reflected in the policy or not.
So if I might, I know that the original topic came up because of discussions of censure. This language, I've been very careful to try to frame it more as a vote of no confidence, either at the board leadership level or at the committee level, and not to frame it as censure. And but it was in the conversation of censure that it was pointed out to us that our bylaws did not speak to this at all. So I tried to frame it from a vote of confidence or no confidence posture, rather than that it be used you know, as a punishment or a censure. I would be just as happy to not have any new language added to our bylaws, but it did come up and it was considered a failing of the bylaws, and so I am proposing this language.
I think before we vote on any matter like this, any policy, we need to just look into those decisions by state ed to see if it's in conflict.
And we can do that, and I think...
And look at NISBA recommendations as well and what other districts have in their bylaws.
So two things. Number one, General Counsel has heard you and is going to look into it more deeply. Number two, if we do have a motion and a second, but if there is a reluctance to move it forward, it will be reflected in the vote. If we don't have 4 votes to move it forward, that means that there's an inclination to wait until we hear what the General Counsel says before moving it out. So that's how I'm going to interpret any vote that comes forward, because we do have a motion and a second. Okay. Commissioner Adams, do you have something you want to say? Or are you just getting ready for the vote? You're getting ready for the vote. Okay, is there anything else anyone wants to say on this topic? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Nay.
Well, I was going to vote nay too, but it doesn't matter. We have 4 votes, so I'll make it 5. 5 votes to 1. And the motion carries. So Commissioner Malloy, understanding that you do have reservations, we have time, we have plenty of time to work that out, okay? All right, that concludes a big chunk of material that's been kind of hanging over my head as the policy chair. Unfinished business, if I may move on. Are we ready for that? Policy updates. Do we have anything in there, Charisma? Under policy updates?
Did you want?
Oh, well, you know what? We're desperately late. I have to be home. But can we put, with the indulgence of the committee, since you did all approve the agenda, can we put this policy deliverables and policy update off until next month? Sure. I have the consent of the body.
That's fine with me.
Okay. Then that takes us to unfinished business, field trips and excursions. This was postponed for additional wording changes. We're back on track with a new track changes version that addresses the question of chaperone presence, if you recall the last meeting. So we have new language there. I don't have enough crib notes to help me out here, but school starts tomorrow. This did get through first and second readings before this version. General Counsel Neal, can you zoom us? There's several track changes here. Can you zoom us in on the new language that was added? Or Charisma, if you, it's the highlighted box on volunteer chaperones. Okay, so this is what has changed since the first and second readings. And if folks are comfortable with these 2 sentences, then we can actually bring the policy to a vote tonight so that it can be in place for the opening of schools. We don't need to waive. Do we have a resolution?
Yes, I just wanted to clarify that this policy didn't actually reach didn't actually leave the committee. It was brought to the committee meeting last month in August. So the resolution language has that in it to waive the first and second readings because of that.
So the original resolution, so it's a resolution that was basically tabled, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So
yeah.
That original resolution already has language to waive the policy 2410 rules?
Correct.
So all we need to do is cast a vote if folks are comfortable enough to put a motion and a second forward.
And it just for clarification, it will be resolution 239.
Resolution, I think Commissioner Patterson has moved resolution 239. Commissioner Adams seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I think Commissioner, if I can read lips,
Aye.
Commissioner Malloy voted aye. That carries 6-0. And that puts another policy in the books, okay, as completed. That's it for unfinished business, is that right?
We have the amendment to the code of conduct.
All right, you might have to talk me through this one. Oh, wait, okay. We're doing this one a little differently. We already approved the code of conduct back in, give me a date. Back in June 29th, we approved a change to the code of conduct. Now, if we go through the whole process of amending, we'd have to go through a public hearing and so on, but there's a very small change. If you look on your board docs, there's a resolution that would change
Must to should if possible.
thank you. On page 42 of a very voluminous code of conduct would allow us to change a word must to the word should if possible with regard to someone from the legal department being present in the instance of a student arrest. It's right here.
Could you repeat that, please?
So the resolved statement reads that the Board of Education hereby accepts the revision up to page 42 in the addendum attached for policy 1400 code of conduct to read, quote, consistent with board policy 5600. Sorry, this microphone died. Consistent with board policy 5600 and superintendent's regulation 5600R, anytime the police seek to arrest a student, the principal or designee must contact the law department, and a member of the law department must be present for the arrest. That's the existing language. Right. The amendment, the change is resolved that it should read, and a member of the law department should, if possible, be present for the arrest. And be it further resolved that the Board of Education hereby amends policy 1400 to that effect. Okay?
And yes, and I can add a little bit of background. This was something that was discussed during the process. I think it's an omission, accidental omission as opposed to really adding anything new. There is actually an appendix that has language that pretty much reflects the same thing. So it should have said this to begin with. Obviously, there's only one of me, and it doesn't come up often. But we can't be everywhere at all times, and so I think that this language is common sense and practical language, and that's what was discussed and agreed through the committee. It was just a accidental omission with the language.
So essentially, it's a technical correction or technical fix. Did I get a motion for that? Not yet. Commissioner Patterson moves. Commissioner Adams seconds. Any discussion now that we're clear on what we're talking about?
Commissioner? Okay, so I recognize this is the policy piece. Where would we have conversation around how we're executing what's written in this policy?
Oh my goodness, microphones
Right.
are failing left, right, and
So
center.
I don't know if you're talking about the specific paragraph or the code of conduct in general, because the code of conduct is a responsibility of everyone in the
Right.
district. It applies to, administrators, to teachers, to students, to the community, right, to family as well. And so operationally, it's everyone's responsibilities. Obviously, depending on the specific section, there's some departments that have responsibilities. The law department has certain specific responsibilities in certain instances as well.
Right.
And this specific paragraph was related to one of those responsibilities.
Yeah, I'm probably looking at some other paragraphs, so I'm not going to belabor the point right now, but I do want to follow up on 2.5, limited role of school safety personnel, and 2.6, address racial disparities in school discipline. I do want to get an understanding of how we are explicitly executing what we've written here. I mean, I like what's written, but how are we doing it? So that's what I'd like to follow up on.
And I look forward to opportunities to have the administration follow up on that. Okay? Commissioner Adams, you have something to say?
I support it because of the first paragraph, the first sentence in that same paragraph that you changed it from must to should have, where it talks about they have to contact the parents, man. That's for me is what's the real deal here.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any further dialogue, discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, resolution, what's the number again? Resolution 917 passes 6-0. That is the last item on our agenda, save for completing the survey. And I will accept a motion to adjourn.
Commissioner Powell, before we do that, I just want to, on behalf of this board, again, and the superintendent, just wish everybody a great year, great school year. I believe we're going to have a great school year, and doesn't mean that it's going to be problem-free, but I just have good hopes for this coming school year. And just make it great, and whatever we can do in order to help. Listen, we're here to do that. So looking forward to, when we can get through this year and see the great results. So thank you and have a great day, great evening, great school year. God be with you. Godspeed.
Okay, will I take that as a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Simmons. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. Goodbye. Good night.